that would like to have this recording because they couldn't come here live. So what I'm hoping to create through this space and this free space is for women to gather together and not so much, I don't think of it like, oh, we have to all be talking or whatever, but to hold space for women to come in and realize that they're not alone in their story, that you may not share the same story as someone else, and yet the power of community and sisterhood is real, and the effect of collective holding and energetic support is real. So I am so glad that you chose to be here today. Some of you, I mean, you guys know me, so I'm honored, and I'm hoping that more people will discover what this is. I think my journey has led me to right in this moment where I started to really say, how can I be of greatest service? How can I be of greatest service um, in my life? And they came clearly, do this thing and do it for free. So everybody who chooses can have access to a little bit more freedom. I've been trained in techniques now that are like, I call it like the icing on the cake, or even the cherry on the top of whatever dessert you desire, whether it's chocolate or some other creme brulee, which are, I think, obviously two of my favorites. But all of the other education and techniques and modalities and certifications that I've gathered over these years, I am now taking this newest technique, subconscious freedom technique, to bring all of these modalities and all of this learning together to bring to women so they can start to feel more free, more empowered, have more clarity, whether you're starting a new chapter of your life or the second act of your life. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. We all collectively have, because we're human and we're female. It's like a double layer here that because of that common ground, we come together and we're able to honor our stories and the versions of us that came to believe something about ourselves before we knew better. And there's so much to this, and we're just taking the baby steps into slow time and the possibility of being more subconscious dominant. So conscious, sub is Latin for under, underneath, below our awareness, below our consciousness is 95% of our responses, our reactions, our thoughts, our words. They are without awareness that we're actually saying, thinking, and doing these things because they're so patterned by the things that we came to believe about ourselves before we knew better. So if we're like, when you start to realize the dynamics that are playing out every day through every conversation, every experience, that it's below our awareness, then what are we actually aware of? 5% of everything we're doing and saying and responding, reacting, kind of pushing and pulling. We're creatures of comfort. So we cling to what is comfortable, and we will dismiss and distract ourselves and push away, resist anything that's uncomfortable. And as human beings doing this all day long, that push and pull ends up being really quite time consuming because there's so much energy just in that push and pull that we're really missing out on being here now. All we have is now. If time is relative, which we know it is, then stay with me. I don't know if all of you are here in this space of kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box, but I venture to guess that if you're here, you actually are a big enough being to hold space for this idea that as we are human and have these issues, that 5% is what we're really aware of, then 95% is just running the show. And if life is if our soul came here to learn and expand, then couldn't it be true that our soul orchestrated every experience, every limitation, every villain in our life to create the perfect cosmic classroom or test tube or whatever you want to call it to create a soul lesson that is like perfectly orchestrated for our own growth and learning in this life. I don't know if you believe in multiple lives. I I used to believe that, and now more and more I feel like really this is our one chance. This is it. We have one chance to kind of wake up and be more conscious of what's driving the bus. So, with that theory of that we designed this, it's a higher perspective for sure. And what's so beautiful about this is that why not think that way? Because then it gives purpose and meaning to even the hardest poo. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, the hardest shit in our lives that ends up, if we are willing to put that perspective and that lens on for a moment, it gives us the opportunity to see that shit as maybe the most beautiful fertilizer that was ever orchestrated for our sprout, our trees to grow up into this beautiful, wise, lived experience, compassionate soul that just ever wanted to expand. So when I think of this experience, I think, well, how could it be any other way? If we live in an expanding universe and we are part of it, then we are ever infinitely expanding too, right? So if there only ever is now, we can't go to the future and live there. I can't say, well, I'm going to go to next Monday. It's 11/11 on Monday, by the way. It's a beautiful portal. But I can't go live in Monday now because it doesn't exist yet. But it lives there in my thoughts. And the same goes for the past. We can't go back to the past, but holy cow, are we living there? If we had to give a percentage to how often we are living in our past through our thoughts, what are we doing if there only ever is now? There's a resistance around that to being here now, and it's not our faults. We have been conditioned by, like, you can't blame anything. It's just the systems, the society, the culture that we are raised in to be fed, and we live in a time-space illusion. It's the illusion of time. I read somewhere recently that was fascinating. I was like, you think of the dynamics when you hear these things and they're a little bit mind-blowing. Really, all there is now, because time is relative, and we live in this existence as humans on the earth in the illusion of time and space, linear, that there is a future and a past. So of course we're going to feel that way. It's just so normal and normalized. That's how we live. We talk about events happening because that's our way to keep track of and the structure of this existence. But if it's relative, then we're living out of the beautiful now by a painful or a hurt past, which starts to inform a scared future. Do you see how I'm trying to create the awareness around the work that I want to do with you in these sessions for free is to give you live assistance, coaching, if you will, therapy. I have all the degrees and I still call myself a coach because coaching in my mind is a little bit more proactive than therapy. As a therapist, I used to sit and hold space and I would reflect back and ask certain questions. But over time, I realized my own experience with talk therapy, I wanted to move the needle forward quicker. EMDR, rapid eye therapy, hypnotherapy, all the things that I have certifications in, they're lovely. I'm not going to say that they aren't. But this technique coming into my life at this time is not random because now I've accelerated my ability to sit with people and get right to the core without so much trauma. Let's talk about the feeling that you're feeling now. Where did you first feel at? And we start going through and unraveling the things that you came to learn about yourself before you knew better And because you didn't know better and no one was there to say, is that true? Is that really true that you're not enough because your mom was busy doing this or your dad said something that you took personally? Is it really true that that is the identity that you're going to choose to live the rest of your life in? And if it was just a thought because you made it mean something about you, then is it really true? And when you start to say, oh, crap, I am a limitless being, I am a soul. How could I ever not be enough? How could I not be loved? I was born at this time with something to do, to live in this time. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Think of this world that we're in now and all of the things that have happened to bring us right here now. Is that random that you happen to be alive now? So when you think of that and what a powerful creator, limitless being we each are as souls that came here to brave this existence, that's kind of mind-blowing because it takes a badass, as a woman even, especially in this world at this time, to rise up and say and own your power and say, wow, like I actually am powerful. I'm more than enough. I am loved. I am love. How could I lack love if I am love? Right? So all of these things start to dissolve because they were just a thought before you knew better. And now you realize the good news is if it was just a thought, couldn't it be that you realize that, oh, I can see that it was not true. So therefore I step into the belief that because that was just a thought, I get to choose differently moving forward. I get to choose to show up in this now every moment, because if time is relative, stay with me here, then that future higher self version of us isn't down this line. She exists now, just in a different dimension of time because all of time is relative, happening now. So now we get to choose every moment. How do I align with the energy? Because everything's energy and frequency precedes form. So if I give my attention, my frequency, energy and motion is emotion. If I'm giving my frequency and my emotions to what it would feel like to be aligned with that energy of my higher self, what does that mean? How does she wake up in the morning? What food does she put in her one instrument? How does she show up in relationship with herself first and then with other? How does she choose to, like we've talked about diet before, if you've ever been in my world or took any of my courses, that your diet is not just what you're putting in your mouth. Your diet exists of anything energetically that you're allowing to permeate your vessel, your container, your sovereign self. What do you listen to? What are you watching? What what words and emotions and thoughts are you willing to let vibrate in your container that then, this is, stay with me, this is quantum physics, right? Then sends out through our subconscious. It doesn't judge what seeds we're putting in. Our subconscious is neutral. It's Switzerland. So it's never going to say, oh, don't say that about yourself. That's not very kind. It will take those seeds and it will let them send out an energetic frequency because our thoughts and our words and our feelings, our emotions have vibration. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand how the universe works, think in terms of energy, frequency, and resonance. Because our words and our thoughts are part of this universe. And if everything is energy, you got to believe they carry a signal, a vibration, if you will. So that is sent out unwittingly, if we're not conscious of it, or wittingly when we start to wake up to how powerful we are. If we're powerful enough to create our suffering, how could we not be powerful enough to create our joy, our bliss, our love, our knowing deeply that we are love? It's not that we're lacking it. We don't lack anything. When we're seeking for something outside of us, we are like living in an identity that we lack love. So we're seeking it out here. When you start to come back home, you realize it was always here. Why was I thinking that I could understand the depth of me by a relationship or a possession or a job or an accomplishment, a degree? That's what we do, though, because that's what we were trained to see. That's how we were conditioned. So to wake up to the fact that we are love, you start to realize that you're not living from lack anymore. When you start to live in abundance, what is the signal you start sending out? It's very different than the signal and the resonance and the frequency and the energy of lack and not enoughness and grasping. And really, things come down to love or fear. If you had to break every emotion down in every way, it would be the choice between love and fear. This sounds so trite, but literally, like if you think of the words literally and the vibration they send out, is what would love do? How does that feel in your body? It would be surrendered and soft and open. It would feel expansive and growth mindset and accepting and embracing and compassionate. How do we give this to us? How does that feel in our bodies? Let's go the other direction. Let's say we're living in fear. What does that feel like in your body? Does it feel rigid and contracted and closed and rejecting, othering? Did I already say resisting? Unwilling? Unwilling to feel, unwilling to come home and feel a feeling? Our feelings are an extension of us, and all they've ever wanted to do was to guide us back home to ourselves. They're constantly speaking to us. I'm mad. I'm angry right now. I'm scared. I'm in pain. I'm hurting. Will you tend to me, please? You'll celebrate joy and love and happiness, and yet there's no room for the other spectrum of our human existence, which is pain and hurt. And one can't exist without the other. In fact, the depth that you are willing to feel, the darker side of our emotions, if we are going to live in a black and white world, and we deem them as something bad and we other them, what is the energy of that? It's the energy of fear. Scared, running, scared, distracting ourselves, numbing out, soothing ourselves through whatever, pick your poison, food, drugs, sex, gambling, shopping, the internet. These are the ways that we distract ourselves and numb out from feeling the things that are going to guide us back home to ourselves. And like I said, the depth that you can feel what feels really scary and have the courage to actually step into it and hold yourself there and trust that you can hold yourself there, then you go to the height of joy and love and compassion because you were willing first to go to the depths. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everything is suffering and that we have to suffer to be able to learn and expand, because I think the more we realize the power that we have and the abundance and the love that live right here, we stop being triggered. So if life, we talked in the very beginning, if our soul came here to expand and grow, then life just automatically through this line of thinking becomes the very hologram, if you will, to teach us over and over. And it's not even teaching, I want to say it's invitation. It's always inviting us, saying, hello, how will you respond to this? It's always giving us, inviting us the opportunity to level up, to expand just a little bit more, to align with that now version of us that seems like a future higher self right now in any given moment. It's ours to choose. How will we choose? And we get to every moment. There's not like, oh crap, I didn't do it. No, well, you have now. You can just go back right to now because it's only ever now. even if the like 3 seconds ago you were beating yourself up for judging yourself about this or judging someone else or blaming them for this, instead of having radical self-responsibility and saying, whatever is happening out here, this might be triggering for some of you, but this is where subconscious freedom, this is the crux of it. It's radical self-responsibility. And if we keep asking the question, why does this keep happening to me? Then we're going to stay stuck. When we start to say, what must I believe about myself? What identity have I been living in that I came to believe about myself before I knew better, right? If I'm living in this identity that I'm not enough, then everything that's happening out here is saying, it's reflecting back to me everything to confirm that identity, because that's how our brains work. Our brains are wired to look for patterns, and the messages it's receiving from the subconscious mind, neutral, saying this is what's being fed here, the energy goes out like our brain has a receiver, and it sends out the signal to find the pattern that matches the energy that we are living in. Does that make sense? So when you start to have radical responsibility and stop blaming anything out here for what's being manifested through your thoughts and your words and the vibration, the energy, if energy frequency is frequency and frequency precedes form, we start to realize that we are the creators of our reality. And when you start to realize that we have 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are exactly as the day before, what are we doing? If we're not aware, we're basically sleepwalking, unconscious through our life. So when you start to be aware of the thoughts that create our words, our thoughts create an emotion, and the emotion creates a belief and an action, then that becomes our personal reality and our personality and our personal reality. And so it goes. You have this cycle, if you will. If you're never thinking about what you're thinking about and how you're talking to yourself, the world of words that you're living in lives in the container of your identity. I'm not enough, or I'm powerless, or I'm not safe. I'm not safe to be authentically me. I'm not heard. All the iterations that there are of that primal wound, and we all carry it. I don't care who you are. If you had like a blissful childhood, if you're human, you have it, because it's part of the reason why we're here. The soul lessons that we're here to learn lies in that limitive belief. And our expansion is to discover all the conditioning, all the layers to like, so it's not that we're adding anything new here, it's that we're stripping away all of the shit that we were taught about ourselves that isn't true. We are not fear. We are never not enough. We are love. We are abundance. When will we finally wake up and see the thing we have been seeking the most in our life outside of us exists right here? We are medicine. So when you start knowing this truth, guess what starts to change? Your thoughts. Your thoughts start to change because now you are more compassionate with yourself. You can't give to someone else that you haven't given here first. We think we have deep love for someone else, but how we can only we judge people to the depth that we judge ourselves, and we love people to the depth of compassion and love that we can give here first. So think of how the dynamics of everything in your life would start to change because of the vibration, the signal that now your brain is sending out to find the pattern to match the identity that I am love. I am abundant. I don't lack that. So I'm not seeking it in something outside of me, because now I know. And that changes your whole world, because now you get to live abundantly. You get to create the form that was first thought of and spoken of in frequency first. So now what you're creating, it's quantum physics. I don't know if you've ever heard, I'm going to talk for just a few more minutes. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to do some live coaching. So if you're willing and want to raise your hand and just say, hey, this is a thing that's been triggering me lately, or this is my challenge, or this keeps happening, or whatever, let's go. If you're willing, that's why I'm here. I'm so excited to do this, but I want to just kind of wrap up this little thing because it gives context to the subconscious freedom. But in quantum physics, the quantum particles are very, very interesting, they've discovered, because when they carry every version of the whole, right? They carry every version of the whole in these quantum particles, like let's say our quantum particles in each of us, but we're universal, so it's all around collective, right? But if we're just going to talk about ourselves, these quantum particles hold every version of us because they do, because time is relative, right? Because everything exists now. So all the versions of us live in our quantum particles. But the interesting thing is they observed, or they researched and studied and learned that when those quantum particles are observed, they changed based on the observer. Fascinating. Because what that meant is that the energy that it was feeling from the observer was what it showed up as. So that means if we have decided in our minds that because of our lived experience, our perception, I can't take off my perspective and give it to you, right? Wouldn't that change our world if we could say, you know what? This is how I'm feeling, and take off my glasses and put them on you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's how it would feel for you. Because I'm wearing my own lens. Do you want to wear mine? How would that change our world if we could change our lenses, change our perspectives, and stand in someone's lived experience? Wow. Talk about connection. But we can't. And because we can't, it must not have been meant to be. We live in a perfectly ordered universe. When you start to see the order, the Fibonacci code, and the numbers, mathematics, and everything coming together, this beautiful thing that we are a part of. So then that would suggest that everything has its order. That we talked about earlier, that everything that's ever happened, whether we say there's a villain in our life, maybe they were our greatest teacher, because now our soul expanded because they we're in our story for a reason now, if you have that perspective. So these quantum particles, if we've decided that life is a certain way or that person is a certain way, we've shut down any possibility energetically for it to be different, right? There's resistance. It's shut down. It's contracted. It's scared. It's fear. When we believe just that there's just this one way, we're actually leaning into the opposite of love. When you open up to love, you literally scientifically open up to the whole possibility of available quantum physics like possibilities of things to be. Because we're open, we're expanding, we're compassionate, we're stepping into our abundance and love, and that energy alone creates all these possibilities for us and how we want to live, how we want to see the world, how we want to show up for ourselves with love instead of fear. And when you open everything up like that, because frequency precedes form, and where your attention goes, your energy flows. When you start to say, instead of what if it's this? And that's this, it's fear, right? And you say, what if? What if? What if I could live with ease? What if I lived in a world where systems move for me and with me? What if I am that powerful of a co-creator being that my thoughts and my words actually create my emotion about that thing, energy and motion? And now I'm choosing a new reality because I believe I can. And I know I can. Because if I'm powerful enough to create what I've been living in, which is a lot of suffering, let's be honest, I've been there. And now I'm becoming more and more free because I'm saying, why wouldn't I choose this? Why wouldn't I want to live as love and compassion and expansion and freedom and embracing and awareness, accepting all of it just as it is, perfectly perfect, even though it feels really crappy? What is this? What is my soul learning right now? If this is happening, there's a reason, and I'm part of it. So when am I going to wake up to the fact that I get to be part of my life to start expanding it into all the possibilities? Because science is on my side too. So when we think of that, then we say, oh, well, giddy up. Let's go. Let's go to the shadow. Let's go to the original pain. And I'm just going to speak really quickly about a primal wound, original pain, because it speaks to this as well. Our our very first primal wound didn't so much come from our caregivers or parents that actually had their own trauma. And we didn't know that as kids, right? We just think our parents are perfect and we have this unspoken agreement with them that if you keep me safe, then I will show up as the version, whatever that is, whatever I think you want me to be, and that's who I'll be. But if you are aware of that statement and that kind of unspoken agreement, because we're never saying that, it's just kind of this, it's the way that the energy of life is, and it flows this way, then what we're really saying is, I will, this is where the primal wound of rejection and abandonment lies. It's not something outside of us. I will show up as the version that I think you want me to be, which means I have to abandon my authentic self. And that's the primal wound. That's the original pain. And we think that it lies in something outside of us because that's when we're blaming and living in fear instead of radical self-responsibility saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know better. Of course I did that. It's actually a brilliant adaptation that as humans we have learned. No one's teaching that to us. It's before we have words or concepts. We are learning through energy how to be in relationship with someone else. And we don't know better than to say, wait, I need to honor this first. Do you see? Because it's not something that's taught in school. It's not something that's in our society. So therefore you have to wonder, isn't that part of the whole plan then? Wouldn't we have been taught that if it was supposed to be some other different way? So really, like when you start to be like, why are we here? Well, don't you think if we're in an ever-expanding universe that we are part of that universe, and so therefore we want to eternally expand and just be growing in the depths and the heights and all of it. We are limitless beings, and of course that limitation is going to teach us something. Of course that shitty thing, that awful person, and then as you start to expand, guess what? That wasn't so shitty. They weren't so awful because look at me now. Look at my growth. Look at my love. Look at my heart wide open. And I wouldn't want to live any other way because now I'm free. I'm free and I'm light. And now from this space of homecoming, of knowing who I deeply am, I get to choose love and grace and embracing and acceptance over and over and over and over again. And guess what? The more I choose that, if frequency precedes form, what reality am I creating? The one that I chose because I said it was so. We just passed Halloween, and abracadabra in Aramaic means abracadabra, and literally its translation is as it is spoken, so it is. So that's an enlightened being knowing the power of their thoughts and their words and their feelings to create their reality. As it is spoken, so it is. So if I can teach you anything in this space, It's to realize the power that exists in you as a creator being, soul, in human form, to create the life that you actually can create because you finally believe that you can. When you believe in yourself, you start to believe yourself, start to believe your words. And when you believe in yourself, you start to believe, or when you believe yourself, you start to believe in yourself more and more. It goes both ways. So the power that we have, not only to create heaven or hell, if time is relative, stay with me here, and there's no past and future, does heaven exist some future place? Maybe. I don't know. I used to be so convinced I knew all the answers. The only thing I am convinced that I do know is that I don't know. I don't know. And from that space, I feel like that is more open and expanding than thinking that I know all the answers and that this is right and this is wrong. But we do live in a dualistic world, right? But when you start to be more aligned with, well, duality exists in this plane, this human existence, it has to be that way because one makes the other true. You can't have love without fear, or right without wrong, or up without down. Like all they exist as coexisting energies, balanced to with uphold each other. One makes the other true. But you can go to the depths and the heights of these two things to learn more about who you are, because that's why we live in this container. So we can go and expand. They exist for a reason, right? So what was I saying? I was talking about time is relative. If anyone wants to remind me in the chat, I'm like trying to remember what was being said at the moment about that. Anyway, it must not have been so important, but um, does someone remember? If you want to unmute. Cindy, were you saying something or no? Wait, can you unmute? I can't unmute you. There you
Hear me
are.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I think were talking about the abracadabra as it is spoken, so it is.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So when you start to believe in yourself, right, the power of your words can do that, then you are becoming the co-creator of your reality, right? So I think it was something else too, but we're going to just go to now. I don't want these to be so long that you feel like, oh, I don't have time to come when she's doing these. And I really would love to say, if you guys want to do it more than once a month, I'm here. I want to be there to support you in any way. I want to start a Telegram chat where if you have questions about things, I can riff and give you an answer that in the moment can support you through whatever you're going through. That's why I'm here. And that's why I want to be of service, because why not? Why not? When a woman rises up, I really truly believe that she brings everyone with her. So as we kind of link arms and say, you know what, let's do this work. And this is the other thing, as you sit in this space, I know some people are a little resistant to group space, and I get that. If you haven't done it, if it feels new or whatever, it's baby stepping into the awareness that mirror neurons live in our brains, right? And what that means is that when you are observing something, this is why advertisements and commercials can be so powerful, because when we're watching something, we're having a feeling about it. And that mirrors what is happening out here. I mean, think of how many like movies or things you've cried at because you were like mirroring what was happening here and you felt it. Okay. So when what was I just talking about? Oh, okay, the mirror neurons. Okay, so when we are having this experience in a group experience, and I start talking to someone who's saying, hey, I have a question about this, or this is how I felt about this lately. And I say, okay, good, let's start going there. And we start to do this session together, and there's other women watching. Guess what happens? They start to mirror, well, crap, that's how I felt about me, or my son felt that, or I remember my parents talking about this. It suddenly you are mirroring what's happening here and you are feeling the the release. and the healing and the holding and everything that's happening for the one is happening now collectively because that's how we're wired. So it's really beautiful. So don't think to yourself, well, I don't want to sit in a group. It doesn't have value, but it doesn't mean that you have to show up and raise your hand every time. It means if you will just be willing to observe and feel and listen. Someone's story may not be your story, but it doesn't matter because we live in this collective human experience. If you're human, you have a story and there's a theme. And the theme is that primal wound that made me believe something about myself before I knew better that isn't true. It was never true. It was just a thought. So now you get to clean that up and choose how you choose to move forward now in a very different way. Now that's power. So, with that said, I'm willing to stay as long as you want. I don't care, or as short as you want, but I want to invite anyone who would be willing. I'm going to take off my view here and put it here to gallery. If anyone is willing to, I don't know, raise your hand and be maybe a little vulnerable and just say, this is what's moving through me. This is, I was triggered yesterday or even this morning, or this seems like a challenge, something that keeps happening. And I'm like, what's going on? That's why we're here. You don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want. I totally will honor that. I hope that as we step into this space more and more, that you will feel comfortable and realize this container is a safe space and would be super cool to have anyone share. I can keep talking and teaching, I could do that all day long. If you know me, then you know that's a real thing. But if anyone would like to, hello, Debbie, how are you?
I can barely talk, but
Oh, that's me that your voice is like really so
yeah,
good.
can you hear me?
I can
Okay.
hear you.
So I'm going to take it off of you because I look heinous, but I keep getting sick. Like I'm sick so often because I don't take care of my body, because I stay up too late and I do put everyone else's needs before mine. And I don't know why I continue to like self-sabotage in this way, because it doesn't help me in any way. I don't believe it does, but I must be doing something for it to continue to happen. So I'm wondering how everything you're speaking is so beautiful and it's so true, but how do you put into practice when you've had these bad habits that literally like are ruining your life? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
no, I see you. First of all, I want to honor that
thank you.
you were willing to come forward. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Sorry.
your
Do you,
vulnerability, your willingness, right?
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you care if I take it off? Because I'm going to lay down while I listen.
Fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking. Um, so just listening to you, Debbie, like I said, I want to honor your willingness to come forward and with your voice and everything, just speak your truth and the things that are moving through you and that have been moving through you. I know you a little bit, so I've been a witness to some of the things that have been moving through you. And so I don't know when you came in to this container, but some of the things I was speaking to is I listened to your world of words, right? I'm listening to the things that you're saying about your lived experience. Okay. Okay. So radical self-responsibility looks like, we talked about whatever's happening out here can only ever be a manifestation of what's living in here because it's energy, right? We talked about quantum physics and quantum particles and all of these things it's energy. Everything's energy. So the world is neutral. It's a mirror, right? And we are projecting all the time. Think of how often we've been projected at, right? People are always projecting stuff on us and we are doing it to others unwittingly. When we start to realize, oh, wow, what they're saying doesn't have anything to do with me. They're just projecting out their version of their perspective. It's strange to think that everyone we know has a different perspective of us through their own lived experience, right? Whether they're judging us or loving us or whatever, that's their perspective. So it's true that when we start saying, why does this keep happening? Like Debbie, I'm bringing it back to you. Like, so if I feel like I'm always sick and I'm not taking care of myself, whatever, what identity must I believe about myself before I knew better, right? We already kind of went through that so I could get to here now, that keeps showing me and mirroring back to me what that identity is. Am I worth taking care of?
That I should put other people before myself.
Okay. Okay. So in the essence of that, there's something deeper, right? Those people-pleasing tendencies. Yes, yes, that's the adaptation we talked about. That, you know, when you come to believe something before you know better, you start adapting, and the adaptation would be perfectionism, people-pleasing. And I hate to say it, but we live in a culture that celebrates those very adaptations. So it becomes really difficult to start to believe that that isn't our reality, because we've never known any. We check in with ourselves by looking where? Sideways. How am I doing? Well, let me see. What?
Well, and I think too, it's like we're taught to be Christ-like. So if you're Christ-like, you're going to put other people ahead of yourself. So if you're being righteous, you're doing things for other people. Does that make sense? Versus seeing,
I get, yeah.
righteousness would be like, you're supposed to take care of yourself. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, I do. And so I'm going to challenge that, because it's what I started to do when I, like, everything fell apart after my divorce. I was like, okay, I'm kind of sort of cut back to my root here. So if I am going to grow something new, doesn't it start with the soil? So I had to choose a new soil, because the soil that I had been given by all the conditioned of my culture and all the things, I was like, I had to say, now, how do I really feel about that? Right? Like, I used to say that I knew all the answers, and then I had to be like, well, now the only thing I do know is that I don't know. So now you saying, well, if I'm Christ-like, then I'm putting other, like, I'm being so kind and serving others. Did Christ really say that though? Did he really say,
No.
like, go take care of everyone else before you take care of this vessel? Actually, I think what he said was exactly the opposite, and maybe said it in metaphorical ways that, and this is not to say that it's taken out of context, or it was written wrong or whatever. What I'm saying is because of the powers that be in our life, our generational ancestors and our religions and our systems and our cultures and the overcultures, all of that really speak to the fact that to be kind, you take care of others first. It's never, no one's teaching this in school, to say, you know, I like, take care of yourself. When you're doing this, you can't give to someone else what you haven't given to yourself. Stacy, I saw you. Hold on just a second. So to take care of this means that now you can go, when you have a relationship here that's deep, from that space of being grounded and rooted in the knowing that I am worth taking care of first, from that space, you just exude compassion for others, and you show up differently, because now you're not giving from a depleted, exhausted container that's kind of empty and sick and self-sabotaging, or thinking that she's bad for tending to herself and resting, right? So there is a belief. I want to get to that. I'm going to put a pause right here, Deborah, because Stacy wanted to say something, and then I want to come back and keep going deeper into this original identity, so we can clean it up for you. Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I just was gonna say that, yeah, you're like, he said the opposite. It was exactly the truth, is that he said when he tells us to love the people around us, he says, as thyself. So it sounds to me when he's saying that, like he's actually saying you have to love yourself first, because he said, love your neighbor as like you love thyself yourself. So you can't really love your neighbor until you've learned how to do it. It sounds even the way that he worded it, like you learn how to love yourself first, and then you can go out and love other people, because it just doesn't
Absolutely.
work any other way.
No, that's exactly the thing. I mean, Christ didn't have a lot of rules that he, like, wrote down for us. It was like, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. So it really, like Stacy said, it's the thing that sometimes we miss because it's kind of put at the end and our culture isn't teaching that so much, right? So
Yes.
when we start to realize, wait a minute, how can I be of service to others if I haven't served myself? Where is the bridge between serving and love to self and compassion for self? That it, when I create that here, when I give it here from myself and I receive it from myself, it naturally like creates a bridge to others, because now you know what it feels like to receive and give compassion and love and acceptance and embracing and all the things that we think we're lacking, right? So Deborah, like this feeling that you have that is um like what if I had to ask you, and you don't have to turn your computer back on here, but if I had to ask you, what is the feeling that you get when you think of, oh my gosh, I've been so sick physically, I've lost my voice, I haven't been taking care of myself, I'm have all these things that I need to take care of before me. What is the feeling that you get when you think about this and how it's playing out in your life right now?
I feel sad. I feel like I've kind of done it to myself because I've always been like a really caring person about people, but I feel like I've always maybe not deserved to care about myself more. I should always care about other people first. And I've done that for my kids, then to try to help them feel extra love. But they all say that they feel like they should be putting other people before themselves as well because of this, which is like the most heartbreaking thing because I didn't want them to feel the way I was. I wanted them to love themselves so much. But they're like, well, you're not doing it. And so then I feel extra bad, like, oh crap, I've already kind of ruined my life with this problem. And now I'm like ruining my kids' lives with this problem. So I feel like a ton of guilt and shame about it.
Okay, of course. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Like really, I think what
Thanks.
you just spoke out loud is what a lot of mothers carry as this responsibility that was handed down by what we saw modeled by our own mothers and grandmothers, this generational trauma, if you will, around the idea that a mother, grandmother must sacrifice her very self for her children and grandchildren.
Totally.
Right? In what world was that the rule? Where did it begin? Where does it end? So, what you have modeled, I venture to guess, Deborah, that that was modeled for you long before you ever came around.
100%.
Yeah. No, and there's no blame. There's zero blame in this, because when we look to what was modeled to them before and before, they were the silent generation. They were not talking about their pain and their sorrow and their feelings of lack. They didn't have the resources or the tools that we have now. What a gift we have been given by living in this day and age. It's not random, once again, that we are here now, because there's something to do as we expand our souls around this idea that there might be another way to show up for ourselves first and model that for our posterity and the ones right here. And you know what I'm going to say as I sit with clients over and over, because time is relative. Our ancestors aren't like in some past thing, right? Neither is our posterity, because time is now. So in a different time dimension, they exist. So when we heal now, what are we doing for them? We're healing them in the now, in the sacred now, because we chose to slow down and turn in and tune in with intention to hold that version of ourselves that felt somehow, Deborah. I want to go deeper in this, but I'm just kind of explaining for everyone here the dynamics of this. And I hope you can all feel it as women, what this means for us and the healing that gets to take place ancestrally, generationally. You know, I'm sure you've all heard now, it's kind of a catchphrase, generational healing, ancestral healing. That's what this looks like. we get to choose to be in right relationship, in right timing, in right proportion with ourselves. So from that space, we go out into our world in the flow of our existence, energetically sending out a very different signal now that says, because I love myself enough from this place, I will choose compassion for myself. I will choose love. And if that isn't sending out a signal that is so vibrant and radiant and bright and accepting and embracing and loving to everyone in your realm, I don't know what does. And that's what happens when you start to turn towards yourself. So this homecoming, this space, I think when I say that, sometimes I see women glaze over because I realize I get it. I'm like, oh, I've been there. I'm like, homecoming to what? Because I didn't really know who I was for so long. What am I coming home to? It's kind of a scary thought. If you haven't really discovered who you are, then what does this space look like? Yeah, it would be maybe a little bit scary to come home to because there hasn't been any space or paradise or garden or growth or like place to land.
Well, because we've abandoned ourselves this whole life. So it's basically like a sad little girl, like huddled in the corner.
Okay.
You know,
Deborah, thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I said from the very beginning until now, working with you, is that primal wound. It wasn't anything outside of us that our parents did. It was that we abandoned a version of ourselves as a little kid before we knew better, to think that we were going to show up as whatever version they needed us to be. And that's the original wound. The primal wound was self-abandonment. So now what we get to do with this subconscious freedom work is actually go hold that little version of Deborah that came to believe that she was
not good enough.
okay, not good enough, but I think it goes deeper than that, honey. I
Well, I
intuitively,
think it's not worthy enough. Like, not good enough, but you're not worthy to really love yourself
okay, I'm not
because,
worthy to be
yeah,
me, to be
yeah,
authentic.
yeah, because what I was wrong. I was always wrong. My parents were, it was just wrong for my family. So I just think I was like, okay. And I also got praise for being nice. So I'd get in trouble for everything, but I get praise because I was a loving one. So then I was like, oh, I guess by being loving, then I'm acceptable.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm glad we're getting down to this. Like, I'm not safe to be me on some levels because you were always worthy, but you didn't feel it. But maybe it was a feeling of safety. Like, if I don't do this, then they're going to reject me or maybe abandon me. And I've already abandoned myself. So now it's a double whammy, right? So I kind of want to go into this, like, if you're willing, like, the feeling that you had, the sadness and all of this, right? Can you remember, Deborah, you don't have to give an age if you can't, but an event or like the first time you ever felt this feeling of, I mean, I'm not safe to be me, or I'm not worthy of showing up as me, an iteration of that.
Well, I mean, I remember in preschool, I was always in trouble because I talked too much or I wasn't paying attention. I mean, we didn't know about ADHD then and everything, of course, but, and at home, like I was too sensitive. Like I'm really an empathetic person. So I'd cry too easily. So I was always like too much, like too
Oh,
sensitive, too talkative, too not concentrating, not serious. Like I just was in trouble. The only thing I wasn't in trouble about was that being loving, and I was naturally really loving. So I think I just was like, I guess I'll put all eggs in that basket.
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for like, and this is the other thing I want to bring people awareness to, that when we start to do this work, our subconscious is always going, always listening, always aware. And it's like, oh, she's doing some work here. So when you start to think like, when was the first time, go with your first impression because your subconscious is always willing to work with you. Trust that. And then right behind it will come your mind saying, well, wait, that was just this thing. Go with your very first impression because that is your subconscious giving you the gift of what wants to be held, right?
Yeah,
Our
yeah,
souls are whole, that we are not broken. We don't need healing. What we need is to hold our shadow part, that little version of us that came to believe that thing that's wrong, that was never true. And to hold that is when the integration happens. And yes, healing, but our souls are whole. We're not broken, right? We're here having a human experience that's helping us expand. So everything has to crack open to expand. Seeds, like you think of everything, the universe, everything has to crack to let the light in to grow. So this is part of your seed cracking open, is you suddenly realizing, Deborah, like, oh my gosh, of course I came to believe that about myself. That's what everyone was telling me. I had to believe in this certain way. I had to act in a certain way. I couldn't be too big. I'm not safe to just show up as me because I'm too much. Right?
Totally.
Okay, so Deborah, think of how boring it would be if you went, like, do you like art? Do you like music?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
My degree's in humanities, so I love it.
Okay, perfect. I think I knew that about you. So yeah, if any of you need to leave, I totally understand. Thank you for being here. I hope you come next time. But let's say that you went to an art museum and there you were walking through and you noticed, oh, wait, like every picture is exactly the same. Wouldn't that be boring?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
What if you went to turn on the radio and every song was the same song? Would that
Nightmare. It was horrible.
okay? So it would just be so boring. So, I mean, here you're like, my family, it was too much for my family. And we're living in systems, in cultures that want us to conform because it's easier for teachers to teach when everybody just thinks the same way and believes the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So of course that is the reality of things. So as you start to realize, wait a minute, was I ever too much because I felt deeply and because I was this
Yes.
sensitive soul that life was moving through me and I expressed myself with joy and I was just this vivacious bright star of a child that could like had all these gifts and these talents for empathy and compassion. Anyone who knows you, Debbie, they can feel it. It's who you
Thank you.
are. It's who you be. So to look at that as a little girl and think of that little girl right now, like, can you go to her for a minute and talk
Yeah,
to
she's sad.
her? Yeah. She's really sad. Like, so what would the you now, with all this lived experience, understanding in deeper ways that, wow, I was this beautiful, like, star child, so bright and shiny. And my family didn't, and there's no blame. They didn't know better. They were raised by the silent generation. Actually, our parents were the silent generation. They didn't know, they didn't have the resources or tools to know how to handle this bright star. So it would be easier if that bright star would just kind of conform because it'd just be easier. 9 children in your family?
8.
8 children. Imagine, can you imagine? Like for a parent, it would be easier to have everyone just get in line, just be easy. Don't be bright and shiny. Just, right?
Yes.
So think of the gift actually that you bring by demonstrating that, you know what? I'm okay to shine. I actually am going to be safe. Like, so when they would say those things and you felt the energy of some sort of, I don't know if I want to call it rejection or kind of like,
Oh no, it was. It was like complete deflation and rejection and like you're not good enough again. Like whatever it may be. It's always
over
like
and over. Okay,
you're
exactly.
wrong. Like
Yeah.
you're wrong. Like you're wrong to feel that. Like don't tattle. You guys can handle it or whatever the thing may have been.
Yes. Okay. So think of this. Like, given what you know now about your parents and their own stories, their own trauma, did Deborah ever, was she ever wrong for just showing up as her star child self?
No.
No, she was never wrong. Even though when her parents did that, she quickly, intuitively, innately knew, oh, I must show up as something different in order for them to be happy,
Love me. Yeah.
or to feel okay, or to love me. So I can
Yeah.
be seen. I must conform. I must not be authentically Deborah. So what you're speaking to is that primal wound is self-abandonment. So if we can reconcile that your parents, give them grace for their own path and their own story and their own trauma, because now you're older and you can see that and you know that, what
Yes.
that little version of Deborah really wants is your compassion and acceptance of her shape shifting to become other than her most authentic self. Like, can you go to that little version of you and hug her? How does she seem?
She seems scared.
Of course she's scared. How very,
Kind
very,
of, yeah, doesn't really know if like I'm not really very good about being consistent in my life. And so I kind of think she's like, so you're doing this right now, but you probably are going to leave.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I
I don't
get
know
that.
if I can trust you.
Okay, first of all, I want to just bring attention really quick to some of the words that I hear you using, which are, I do this, I'm not good at this, this is what I always do, this is how I am, right?
Yeah.
So what part of radical self-responsibility is observing and being aware of the world of words that you have created that are living in the identity that I'm not safe to be showing up as me and taking care of me. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So when you start to really pay attention to the words that have created the perpetuation of this identity, which is based in a story that you came to believe about yourself. And now it's continuing to play out through your story that keeps perpetuating in your words. So we're going to go back to where we were, but I just want to bring attention to the world of words that we live in. Start paying attention, and when we can clean that up energetically, that there's insidious words that are like, I have to, I must, I should, I can't not do this or whatever. Those are called insidious killers because energetically, think of the difference between the difference in your body of I have to, I must do this. It's kind of fearful and shut down, right?
Totally.
But when you think of I get to, I want to, I love to, that's a very different energy. I get to take care of Deborah. I want to treat her with more compassion. I want to be consistent. So I know that little version of me will trust me to not leave again and not sabotage. So when you think of going back to that version of you, and she is scared, but maybe go back with your highest self, which you have access to now, if you were listening. What would she say to this littler version to help support her through how she's feeling right now about this?
I'm sorry that I abandoned you and I'm not leaving you again.
Okay. Okay. Now I want you to say that again. Thank you for saying it out loud. This is really tender and really sweet. Like, say that again
Okay.
and really let your emotions be felt when you're ready. Don't take your time. Please take your time.
I'm sorry that I abandoned you and I promise not to leave you again.
Okay. Can you see her? How does she seem now?
She's crying.
Yeah. Yeah, a release. Of course, she's crying. For her to hear these words from you is really, really powerful. Really, in its essence, she is you. You are her. You know what it feels like because you are her. And she's just, time is relative. She's just a different time dimension of right now. So what you're giving, Deborah, to this littler version of you, you are absolutely giving it to the version of you now. I will not abandon you. I will be right here. I will always be right here. And I love you. And thank you for showing up for us. And keep going. You're doing so great. Keep going. Don't give up on us. Because this right here is where the magic is. when you start to turn and give compassion to all the versions of you that only ever wanted your compassion, it changes everything. Do you understand that? And this isn't just spiritual, it's scientific, it's energetic. Now you're speaking with the energy of love. Love exists as the greatest power in this universe. And because it exists in a dualistic world, it allows fear to exist because it knows it's more powerful than fear. But it allows it to be because it's unconditional love. It allows everything to be just as it is because it's perfectly as it is, or it would be another way. It's for our highest good every moment, always inviting us. How will we choose love right now? So when you sit here and talk to this version of you that felt so sad and so rejected because she felt like her parents couldn't see her for just the glorious little girl that she was and is and still is. Did Deborah was she ever wrong? Was she ever too much?
No, but it's hard to believe that.
Of course. And it is hard because you know why? There's been a lot of momentum. This identity, this work. Sometimes I work with people and it's immediate and they're like, oh my gosh, it was only ever a thought and it wasn't true. And it was driving my train my whole life. And now I get to, because it wasn't true and because it was just a thought, I get to lean into what world, who can Deborah be in the world where this old belief is gone? Who do you get to be in a world where it's not true that you're not safe to be you? What happens? How does that feel in your body when you're like, wow, who do I get to be now that I know in the absence of that old identity that I'm not safe to be me or I'm too much?
It's hard to believe.
Okay. So there's some work around that, and that's okay because it's built up a lot of momentum and it takes more compassion, stepping into more compassion and more love every time. And I talk about like Bambi legs or giraffe, like baby giraffe legs, where it's really wobbly, where you're like, oh my gosh, I felt that wasn't true. And so that's like flip the script and realize, oh my gosh, I get to choose where I go from here. Okay. And we're human. We're human. So of course you're going to be like, well, I want to believe this because guess what? We love to fight for our limitations because they're familiar and they're comfortable. We wrap them around us like a warm blanket of comfortability because even if they're the most dysfunctional thing, because they're familiar. We've talked about emotional thermostats in my course, Deborah. I don't know if which week it was, but we were raised in families that set our emotional thermostats. We either were raised in really hot and spicy where people were fighting and yelling. There was a lot of drama. That was like 120 degrees, right? Spicy. And then you have people who were raised in environments that were frigid. Like nobody was talking about feelings. It was a silent generation. No one was fighting. If something happened, they'd shove it under the rug and they're like, that didn't happen. They'd shove it down and move on. Right. And then you have all the iterations within the spectrum of these two polarities. But in the scheme of things, you realize when you come in relationship with others, you're like, oh, I'm hot and spicy and they're freezing cold. How can we come to the middle and understand that I get triggered when they shut down and they get triggered when I yell, right? Like, how can we find the common ground and be really radically self-responsible? So if you were raised in a situation, one of these realms or somewhere in between, understand that that's your normal. So it's going to feel really wobbly and strange for you to continue to choose Deborah with compassion over and over. That's the lesson. That's the practice. If we're here to expand, wouldn't you be willing to try something new than to continue to suffer?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you're ready to to, if it feels sticky and stagnant like a prison. So I want to ask you, stay with me here for a minute. Let's see and feel the effects of this old identity. Tell me where else it's shown up in your life. This, I'm not safe or free to be me. I'm too much. Where else has this shown up in your life?
In relationships.
In your relationships. Okay.
In when I'd be like getting acknowledged at work for things,
Okay.
every time I wouldn't go to like the ceremony to receive the award. So like people were there to give it to me and I did get the award, but I wouldn't be there to accept it.
Oh.
And that's happened several times. I felt nervous. I didn't feel deserving. I didn't want to be up in front of people.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't. And so then I felt bad afterwards. I'm like, I can't believe that even when other people are noticing you could do great work, like you won't even accept it.
Okay.
So
You see that? Do you see how you were living in the identity that I can't get praise? I'm not worthy of praise because I'm not safe to just show up and be me and say thanks.
yeah, and I would never date. Yeah, I wouldn't date people that also were like that to me. I'd date more critical people.
Of course, because that matches our brains. Remember, we talked about our brains are wired to seek the patterns that fit the identity that we're living in. It's always looking for evidence that supports our identity energetically. So you were a perfect match for people that it was kind of like, I'm going to just use kind of therapy words, like the energy of codependency and the need to be needed more than the need to be seen. Putting someone else's feelings or needs before your own because all you need is just need me. It doesn't matter how you treat me, just need me. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you at all?
Yes, I did never think that, but yes, it is true.
Okay. So energetically, you made yourself available for whatever it was that I don't want to say, because I don't know that it's really in their awareness, because I really do believe that everyone's only ever doing the best they can with the awareness that they have in any given moment. So whether they're aware of it or not, the dynamics play out where they are kind of controlling and manipulating a situation, and you stay because it's familiar. It matches your thermostat,
Yes.
right? So there, like, I really want to like let this land for you, the compassion that you want to give to yourself, these versions of yourself that wouldn't show up for the award, that would only date men that were familiar. Can you give her so much grace? Because she learned to be this way before she ever knew better. That these were the energetic dynamics that were flowing through her life. And of course, she continued to live in that container because it's all she ever knew. Can you give her so much compassion and grace? Yeah. So what are some other, I mean, you adapted, right? You adapted by people pleasing and kind of self-deprecation and kind of hiding and staying small because, of course, that fit your identity of I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy enough for attention and I'm not safe to show up in my brightness and my bigness. Even though people were noticing it, it still was leaking out, Debbie, because you were getting awards. I know you. I know your energy of just bright, like just oozing out of you compassion and love for everyone.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
So let's go here a little bit deeper. What are some of the other negative consequences of this prison that have been playing out in your life, if you can think of any?
Yeah, I will buy things for people. I will, when I don't have money, I will do things that are not good for schedule. So I honestly don't even have a schedule because I'm kind of just like, whatever anybody needs, I'm just there for them. And I feel like when people are, it seems like rigid, like some of my sisters are really rigid and they had such strong boundaries. I always thought they were kind of rude and unchristlike. And I didn't want to be like them because I thought they seemed really selfish and it was just Like, you know what I mean? You want to have the friend who was there for you, not the friend that's like, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now, which my sisters have said to me many times. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And
And
so like,
that's their choice, right?
yeah,
Whether that's a boundary. Like I don't really like the word boundaries because it implies that people need to be pushed away or whatever. So that's a sticky thing too. But I understand
sure.
what you're saying. It's
Yeah,
energetic, right? They're just like right now, this
yeah,
is my capacity, right? And that's okay.
yes,
If that's where they're at, that's their capacity.
yeah.
But what did you make it mean about you?
Well, that like I that I shouldn't say no to others, even if other people say no to me, because I know
Okay,
what it feels like. So I
right?
want
Because
to make
that
sure.
fits, yes,
Yeah,
that fit your identity. Do you see how
yeah,
that? Like you
yes,
made it mean, oh, they're saying this because I'm too much or I'm too, and that's what you're making it mean. But is it true that they were too busy and they couldn't help Debbie because they don't like Debbie or that she's too much? Is it true? Can you be sure?
no, but you know,
They may be going through their own stuff, right? We have no
exactly,
idea. But when
totally.
we,
And I don't want to be a burden to people. So I
okay,
like to lighten other people's burdens, but not be a burden to them.
okay, of course, okay. But you can see how this has become a prison. You can hardly talk. You've been very sick. And I know that you've been taking care of a lot lately. And bless you, woman, for what you've been doing and how you've been showing up as mom, as friend, as all these versions of you, that it's so lovely. And this is a sticky space. There's like you can see all the negative consequences because we're going to get to the other side of this. Right before freedom, there's always uncomfortability, right? Like I really want you to sit with this and how this has felt like a bit of a prison in your life, thinking of all the impact, all of the negative consequences that this old way has played out throughout your life. Okay? I want you to just sit with this, how heavy the sabotage, the stickiness. And when you're ready to feel like you're ready to let this prison go, I want you to say yes. I want to like ask your permission to go keep going and kind of clear this out.
Just really quickly before we do it, I have to just say that as I've been trying to do these things, my kids have not liked it. They have been like, "Oh, well, why weren't you more direct with us earlier? Why didn't you make us do more jobs before? Because now we're used to not having to do the jobs because you would do the jobs." So it's
Mhm.
kind of hard. Like, it's hard for me to do it for myself, but it's also kind of hard. Like, I've
Yeah.
picked myself into a corner with the
Yeah.
kids.
No,
So
for
I'm
sure.
feeling like, oh crap, I've like drunk my own poison. Like, what's the deal?
Okay. So it's honoring that and saying, of course they feel that way, right? Because that's how it was. Now, with your own radical self-responsibility and self-compassion, not just for you, Deborah, but instead of enabling your children by doing everything for them, which by the way, later when they go out on their own, there will be consequences that they don't know how to clean or cook or tend to this or that for themselves. The ramifications of that, of you doing it sooner than later, it feels really sticky for them, but I promise you, in the end, they're going to be like, oh, wow, that actually, thank you. Thank you for finally showing up in a way that helped us be more self-responsible than enabled. Because enabling never helps anyone. Because when we feel like we need to control and enable someone, what we're literally saying without saying it, it's unspoken, is I don't trust you to know how to take care of yourself. So therefore, I'm going to do it for you. And how does that feel for them?
Yeah, that's not good either.
No, it's not. So,
But like, I also had that with my dad kind of too. And so I feel guilty because he did help me
okay.
financially. And so then it's like, well, my dad helped me, even though it was kind of beholden to him. So am I being mean to not do that for my kids?
So this is what you get to figure out. Like, can you see the ways and the dynamics that your father that played out for you and how that helped you or not?
Yeah, I
Okay,
know. It's like a double-edged sword.
it is. It's it's a sword and it's real, but when you get really more clear on the dynamics that move through a person that would help, that would create that adaptation that actually is celebrated in our society. Oh, look how giving and kind they are, but actually it's not serving them because they're
Yeah.
putting themselves at the back of the line and they're enabling someone in some ways not to show up for themselves in the ways that they could.
Yeah.
So you seeing all this is like a deconstruction, right? You're like, oh,
Totally.
wow, the energetic dynamics of this, I get to deconstruct it now because I lived in it. It upheld the family I came from, the systems I live in, and how I'm choosing to live my life before I really was aware, because it's kind of in your below your consciousness. And now as I hear you speak, you're like, oh my gosh, the same pattern happened with my dad. Oh my gosh, this was in my family. Oh my goodness, like you start to see the pattern of how this has played out in your life from
Yeah.
something that happened so long ago. And it's okay. It's okay. So you're doing so good. Thank you for sitting with this. Now, if you're ready, I want to like kind of take it to a different energy and start to ask the question, how did this root belief, this limitation, help you, Debbie, become who you are today? How has it, like, really, like, if we were to take it to a higher,
Positive or negative? Positively or negative?
positively,
Okay.
positively. And I want to go up and like look at a higher perspective. Like we talked at the beginning, I can't remember if you were here, talking about this. If our soul came here to experience and expand, and it had to have the rub because we live in a dualistic world, what the limitation becomes the lesson, the experience
Yes.
we get to learn so we can expand. So if you get high up, you just talked about all the negative things that have been playing out in your life, right?
Yeah.
All these,
Mhm.
now let's get up out of the weeds and come up and be like, what is the soul lesson here? If I had to say, wow, as I can see this, what did I come here to expand into my soul? What is the lesson she gets to learn through all of this that seemed really and still seems really messy?
I'm thinking. Sorry.
Oh, take your time, please.
Maybe through loving others, I'm learning to love myself.
Mm,
I
wow.
don't really know, actually.
No, but you've said that you went with your first impression, and it's so beautiful. You just said, listen, say it again, please.
By loving others, I've learned to love myself.
Mm. So in some
Or I'm
way,
trying to learn to love myself better.
well, see, this is the thing. Like I said this earlier, if we really are here for our soul to expand, doesn't, and our soul is kind of orchestrating in concert with all that is, all of the experiences that are for our greatest expansion, and those experiences are only ever always turning us back home to ourselves. Remember what I said about emotion, energy and motion? It's an
Yeah.
extension of us, our emotions, and it's always saying, pay attention. Why are you angry? Oh, that's because I'm feeling unseen. It's a guidebook. Our emotions are a guidebook for us saying, pay attention. How are you going to take care of yourself here? How does that feel in your body? Ouch. Okay. Not, oh, I need to put a boundary up and push them away, but how much space do I need to give to this so I can respond in love instead of fear? What does that feel like in my body? To have not a reaction, but a grounding into who I truly am. So now I respond. So if all these experiences with your father and your relationships and your children, if they're only ever leading you back home to say, oh, dear Debbie, I am right here with you, and I will never abandon you. And I'm holding you through all of this until I'm patiently waiting for you to come back home and anchor into the love that you are. How does that feel in you?
Feels beautiful.
Yeah.
Really peaceful and
Hey,
strange,
so
strangely odd. Like,
so I want to ask you, what becomes available in a world where it's no longer possible to feel this way? In the absence of I am too much, or I'm not safe to be me, or I have to help everyone else before me. What becomes available to Debbie in the absence of that old world?
I guess everything, which is hard to comprehend, but I have to
Yes.
believe that's a possibility.
So this is the world that you're now free of this old thing. You're like, well, wait, I can actually just set this down. What happened happened, and maybe it had a higher purpose. And that's the whole reason I'm here. And now I get to finally step into this world of limitless possibility of if that was never true, I could still give here first and have compassion for all the versions of me that haven't been able to do that because it didn't know better. They didn't know better. And so you give compassion to them, and they are a version of you right now. So all you're ever doing is finally coming home and giving compassion to Debbie in a way that you didn't know how before. So, like, if you had to think of a new statement that is the opposite of your old belief, what would that be? I am, like, sit with this for a minute. How would you like to feel in your life moving forward? You get to choose. I am,
I like to think I am free.
I'm free. I'm free. I'm light. I'm limitless. I'm free from that old way to be. I get to choose me with compassion and love. And it doesn't mean I'm pushing others away or not helping them, because as I love and serve this this being that's always been so deserving and never wrong, that energy is the signal that now she is sending out to everyone in her life. And I tell you, your children will feel it because it's energetic. And maybe they'll start saying, you know what, Mom? We're really glad you're doing this work, because not only are you modeling for us how to love yourself, you're showing us how to be radically self-responsible. And I want to do that, because then it means that I get to be like you and have more compassion for me. That's what this leads to. And that is the healing that we're here to do. And now you get to model it for your kids in a very different way, because it's energy. Our kids, we tell them, do as I say, not as I do, because we know that they watch our words, but they feel our actions. They learn through our actions, not our words. Right?
Right.
So I am free. Like, I want you to feel into this definition of the new identity that you get to step into and choose in any now moment, because that future version of you that doesn't exist out here, she is here now. How would she say, I'm going to ask you again, how does I am free wake up in the morning? How does I am free choose to walk? How does she show up in relationship with herself? What does she eat? What does she wear? How does she accept compliments? How does she be? I'm free. There's a lightness. It's not contracted and shut down in fear anymore. It's love. It's compassion. It's expanding. It's like, oh my gosh, I get to choose in any moment how I be, who I be. It's a completely different energetic container. Yeah. Can you feel that? I heard you take a deep breath. I can't see you, but normally when I'm sitting in
Yes.
front of someone,
I've been taking lots of deep breaths because
when you
it's hard
start
to
to,
it's hard to
yeah,
believe it. Like, does
yes,
that make
I
sense? It's
know.
hard to feel like when they say the bird cage, the doors open, but they stay in the cage.
Yeah. Learned
I feel like
helplessness. Yeah.
that's so so me that like it's like scary to believe like
But are
that it's
you,
you know what I mean?
oh, I do, but I have to say, I'm going to remind you, you showed up here today. You rose your hand, like you turned your camera on and you showed up. You can't even talk. You showed up for you, Deborah. Can you please honor yourself? You talk about your world of words and your narrative of self-sabotage, but this is a radical act of self-care. You showed up and you raised your hand and you were willing. There's some part of you that was willing to say, can I believe this is true? Can I believe that if I show up today and Noelle said she's doing these things and it's kind of different, weird, okay, but can you keep believing in yourself to take care of yourself and stop telling yourself that you don't know how? That's the first steps, the baby steps into compassion, that now I talk to myself in a different way. And now
This is beautiful. It's just, I just am so grateful that you are so, you've learned so much and you've grown so much that you can be so smart to then teach it other people, to things that are innately in us, but that we, like you said, abandoned for so long that then they seem like totally brand new concepts.
right?
So I'm just so thankful for you would do
No,
this.
I'm
So much.
grateful you were here and showed up for yourself, to show yourself, your subconscious was like, oh, I'm going to be there. We're going to do this. And she's going to be free. Yes. Stacy?
Hi, first of all, I love you, Debbie. And
you.
second of all, I'm so grateful that I got on today. A little birdie tweeted in my ear and in my mind that I should pop on, and I'm so glad I did now. I know why. And second of all, just thinking about what you said about your children. I mean, I know from my own children that when they've seen me act and behave a certain way, they don't like to let it go. They don't like the change. They feel comfortable in what they've seen and learned and watched me do. And sometimes they'll say, "This isn't how you are. You're like this." And then and so I'm like, okay. And it used to really freak me out. And sometimes it still does, but I've gotten better from Noelle helping me too, with just apologizing, saying, you know what, I'm really sorry. This is how I was acting before. And I love having my kids see me apologize, because I suck at that. Actually, Debbie, you're fantastic at apologizing. You
Don't
do it
suck
too
at
much.
it. You're learning.
I
You're
know,
learning.
but you know what I mean? That's not
Yeah.
my strength. Debbie's strength is apologizing almost too much, huh, Debbie? And
Yes.
so you can say very earnestly, I have learned, and now I'm going to try and do better, because I know I've heard your daughters try and hold you accountable. Like, well, you did this and you said that, and my kids have done that to me. But
Yeah.
it takes just a couple conversations of saying, you're right. And now I'm going to change because I want to do better. And then I think that they want to be like, oh, our mom just accepted that, that wasn't how she was before, but she's trying to move forward. And I think they'll give you more grace for that. The more you own it and you're just like, I am in the process of change. That's where I'm going.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Healthy things grow and growing things change. We're always, our cells, every 9 years, we're a completely different person in 9 years, every 9 years. So our cells, we're always changing. You are not the same person you were yesterday. So if change is what is expected and happening in us, why do we cling so much to that familiar dysfunction of stagnation? Really,
no.
things to stay the
Why?
same, right? Things to stay the same. So what you're modeling for your kids is that, you know what? Yeah, that old version of me yesterday, last week, a year ago, of course I said that, because that's where I was in my awareness. But because I'm expanding, I am able to sit here and say, you're right. I did say that. Wow, that was me then. But I'm here now. And I'm saying, yeah, I could have done that different. I'm sorry. That is huge for your kids. What you are modeling for them is that it's okay to change. Don't cling to the way that you were because it's familiar, and step into the possibility, the magic that can happen when you open to love and accept that, oh, that happened. Okay, I'm not clinging to my past anymore because all I have is now. And I'm not going to take that hurt past and inform my scared future anymore. I'm just living right now in love, compassion right here for me. And as I give it here, it goes out to you. It can be no other way. I promise you, Deborah, the work you have done today is huge. And please don't do the mistake of telling yourself that, well, I just did that and it wasn't really real. Remember what you felt here. You have a choice to remember what you felt, that you are free. That was a thought that you came to believe about yourself before you knew better. Is it true, Deborah? Is it true that you were too much or you did anything wrong or you weren't worthy of being seen? You
No,
weren't. No. Is it true that it was bad that you put others first and you didn't take care of yourself all that time? Is it like the worst thing and it's so bad?
no,
No, because look what you've learned through all of this. As messy, as hard as it's been, when you get higher up out of the weeds, you start to realize, holy cow, I'm an eternal being. So this lesson that felt really long and drawn out was really ever just happening in the now moment. And now I choose compassion. Now I choose love and I choose freedom. That's all. And you keep doing that over and over until you have. I love that we have discovered neuroplasticity and epigenetics, because now we realize, oh, we get older and we actually get smarter. It doesn't shut down. We have a neuroplastic. So you're creating new neural pathways every time you're more self-aware. And that becomes your new normal. You're getting further and further away from that emotional thermostat that was your familiar, and you wrapped the cold, shoving everything down. You wrap that around you, or you wrap around the anger and the pushing people away. You drop that and you come to the now, and you're like, I just choose love. I just choose love for me over and over and over until it becomes so normal that now my diet, which isn't just what I feed myself food, it's what I think. It's what I say. It's what I watch and read and listen to. It's the world of words that I live in now is in a new identity of I am safe to and free to be me, and I'm worth taking care of. It's a whole new identity. You see? Can you feel that?
yeah,
Okay.
totally.
So, Deborah, I want to invite you. Yes, we just did this and it's beautiful, but now the self-care that you get to continue on is the feeling that you feel right now in I am free. Can you tell me what that is? How does that feel to be free?
Feels stupendous. Like
So,
so unbelievable. Like kind of incomprehensible that it could be that way, but I'm trying to have faith that it could be that way.
yes, yes. And keep stepping into that, because faith is part of love. It's expansive, right? Faith and hope and all of these things are so beautiful. They hold the highest vibrations of love. So we choose in any moment where our thoughts are, right? We've talked about shame being just above death at 20 hertz, and then you go up like regret and anger, they go higher, higher, higher up to love and compassion and embracing and acceptance, all these things, right? Joy and bliss. They're high vibrating and they open us up over and over to expand. So this stupendous feeling, when you are falling asleep, it's your hypnagogic state. In the morning, it's hypnopompic, and you are what we call in theta state. It's subconscious dominant. It's where you're in your hypnotized, like when people are in a hypnotism, whatever, they go down into their theta state, and you're more likely, your subconscious is open to receive seeds. So the seeds that I'm going to ask you to plant in those micro moments of waking up and falling asleep, anytime you start to wobble, you start repeating to yourself your I am statements. I am free. I am love. I live in a world where I am safe to show up as me. I live in a world where I love taking care of myself. I live in a world where I'm modeling to my children that it's okay to change. It's okay to make mistakes. And now I can be radically responsible and radically self-compassionate. I live in a world where I am blessed. I'm lucky. Magic happens because I choose it. I live in a world of what if? What if I can stay in this? What opens up to me now? what starts happening in my physical body because I've chosen to step into love? How do I heal? I live in a world where I trust my body to be the master healer and start to heal itself. I live in a world where I don't have to keep going to doctors and having them write pills for me because I know the power of my body to heal. Because I believe it is so. And my words and my thoughts and my emotions about that have power. Now I've stepped into being a creator being in concert with Source, with God. Right? How does that feel?
Totally amazing. Like so happy. So like it like gives the energy, like literal energy to feel better. Like I can feel like my body just feels lighter, like brighter and
Yes.
lighter, you know.
Yes, it is. And I'm telling you, bye, Stacy. I want to tell you, Deborah,
Stacey, I love you.
Love you, Stacy. I want to just say this. I'm glad we're just here now. Just
Are we by ourselves?
I'm sorry.
Are we by ourselves now?
Yeah, we're by ourselves
Oh,
now.
okay, good. Then here I am. Here I am in all my glory.
Stacy and I, it was you and Stacy and I for a while. Now it's just
Okay,
us.
good. Because I was kind of worried if all these people were going to be totally bored, like talking.
No, a lot of people left right at the hour, and I get that, right? Like
Good. Okay,
I
good.
said, I'm staying here as long as people want me to be here
You're
because
so cute.
that's what I want to do. But I, if you can start to feel that right now, think of as you keep coming back and creating the new neural pathway of belief that, remember what I said, when we believe in ourselves, we start to give credibility to our words and we start believing ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When we believe ourselves and the words we speak, we start believing in ourselves. It's this. That is the pattern. And you start to realize the power that you have to create a new reality because it is so. Like I said, I don't know if you were here when I said abracadabra is Aramaic.
Yes.
As it is spoken, so it is because of the vibration somebody knew anciently. Isn't that crazy? The things that they knew anciently that now we're like, oh, we're so smart. And we're like, oh, you guys, you missed the boat, right? Like, as it is spoken, so it is. They knew the power of the vibration of our thoughts and our words to create our very reality. And it's spiritual and it's scientific. One makes the other true. These things are not in opposition to each other. Spirituality calls these things as happening because God made them so. And yes, God made them so because scientifically they had to be a law for this to take place. So one makes the other true. You'll have camps in either side saying, no, no, no. But really, there's an intersection there between science and spirituality that's so beautiful because literally we create our reality through the vibration of our words. It's quantum physics, and our thoughts create an emotion and create the reality. And it can't be the other way. Everything that's going on in here, I promise you it's manifesting out here. Will it be suffering or joy? Fear or love? Choose. You get to choose every now. So why not just choose now? It's kind of an experiment. Why not? See how you feel right now in your body. Your body's lighting up. It's like the heavy responsibility of stress your body's been holding on to. It can be gone. It can just release. You're like, oh, I don't have to hold on to that. It was never mine to carry. What a heavy thing for a little girl to think she had to carry around that I must do everything for everyone to be happy out here, but don't take care of here. In fact, don't show up for the award, but shine so brightly because that's who I am. But then I'm not going to no, I'm going to shove that down.
Oh, so sad. How do you, when you, you're so amazing. I love you so much. When you went through all this, how did you forgive yourself for, even if like, how many times of these little inklings of things I've learned, but I never like really could truly let go of my sorrow for myself and kind of the shame and blame for my own actions, to then be like, thank you, I can give this to the Lord, and now I'm going to move here. Like, did you just have to do it like as an act of the atonement, or did you do some other work to get like, I'm going to forgive myself for everything I thought I was doing that was the right thing, but that has created this? I mean, how many my sister even said the other day, like, you are sick all the time. Like, for decades, you're sick.
Right?
And
Think
it's
of
true.
stress. No, think of the stress, the cortisol. You know about our limbic system, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, people pleasing. That's a fourth one that they've identified now. We talked
Oh,
about.
that's good.
Yeah. So that is a stress response. It's limbic, it's primal. And we do it without even being aware that we're going into it. And when we've lived in that for so long, instead of stepping into our parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, and breathing, being able to breathe and soften around what is happening instead of having a stress response, when you're constantly, your nervous system is in limbic mode, how is your body finally going to say, how is it going to speak to you? Stop. What are you doing? Wake up. How else is it going to communicate to you? Through your body, honey.
Yeah. Yeah.
You asked, how did you ever forgive all the iterations of you that made mistakes, chose to abandon yourself and betray yourself and not show up? Now, I know you have read, and it seems so trite, but I want you to understand the power of words and their vibration are literal. So the power in the thoughts and the words and the feelings around self-compassion, how does that feel in your body compared to judgment, self-judgment,
It feels totally the opposite. I mean, it's
right? So what starts to happen inside your body vibrationally with the energy of self-compassion? It's something very different.
yeah, it kind of goes out and like it was like a black ball before. It's like now yellow, white light. Like it's
Thank you for giving me that visual. It's so
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh,
A black ball, and now like this white light, like yellow kind of thing that's flowing, dissipating, right? It's
yeah.
releasing, it's expanding, it's releasing what was and saying, yes, that happened, honey. Yes, it did. And it's not either or, it's both and. Yes, that happened. And look at what you learned. So thank you. That version of you, give her so much grace and honor because she actually took one for the team.
Yeah.
And you give her so much honor and grace. She took one for the team to have this soul lesson actually appear in your lifetime this time. Thank you, sweetie. I have so much honor for the lessons that you taught me from this little girl that was scared and felt unseen, but she came to that family for a reason to have that very thing happen. So you now today could say, oh, my soul lesson. I know how to love myself. I know how to love on myself like a tender lover.
So cute. Well, and I know how to love others because of what I've done.
It's the
You know.
thing. Can you take that and say, oh my gosh, think of how much I love my kids and I do so much for them and I love everyone. It oozes out of you, Debbie. It's who you are.
Thank
Can
you.
you
You're
let
so
it
nice.
move in? Like let it
Yeah.
seep into your heart, into all the versions of you. Now that's your, it's not your work or your homework, but it's your, you get to, you don't have to, you get to take care of yourself in a new way. You want to, you love to. I live in a world where I get to take care of myself. What does that feel like? I get to go and talk to all the versions, even if it's just yesterday or an hour ago when I was judging myself, all the iterations. There's going to be hundreds, and it keeps coming. It's life. Life's always showing us where we're still not free. Wherever we are triggered, look there and go, oh, I'm still not free. I have more work I get to do. I get to go love on that version of me that came to judge me about that and feel some sort of way about that or make that mean something about me. She said that. Oh, she must not like me. Okay, that's a trigger. Why am I still believing that? That had nothing to do with me. That's their own stuff that they're projecting, right? Now I know better. So I don't make it mean about me because I've healed that part of me that came to believe I was to judging myself. No, it's just compassion. So the more acts of self-care that you take, the closer you're coming to self-love and self-compassion. I'm going to repeat that. Every act of self-care, you showing up here today, you raising your hand, those are radical acts of self-care. And it gets you closer and closer. Your subconscious is paying attention. He's showing up in a completely different way. Now, the energy it sends out, because our brains are wired to create patterns around the validation of support of what we believe and are doing to ourselves and saying to ourselves, you are creating a whole new signal to be sent out. So this is where it gets really magical. More self-care and self-compassion you give yourself, the signal you're sending out is completely different, I promise you, than what the identity was that you were living in before. Start looking for synchronicities because the energy you're sending out can only match with like energy, compassion, love, support, acceptance, embracing, magic.
Yes.
Because you know you are a creator being, you start speaking the world that you want to live in. What if I love myself enough to find a job that's going to be right for me, where I can still be here and helping my children, showing up in the way that I want to? What if I live in a world that's easy? Easy for me to feel into health? What if I showed up in a way for my body that I put into it, spoke to it, treated it with so much compassion and love that it now is the one instrument that starts sending out a signal that is so vibrant and compassionate that it starts drawing in the very relationships, situations, experiences that match that energy.
That's a lot.
Yeah, honey.
It's a lot to hope for, but it also feels familiar in the sense of like, this is what God's wanted for us all along. He doesn't want us to live a hard, crappy life. He's like, I want you to have the best you can have.
Benevolence. It's benevolent. That energy wants us to expand and grow. So
Well, it's like the most that we'll receive. Like, I'm here, like when he's knocking the door, like, I'm here for you anytime. You just have to like open the door and receive.
right? Don't you
Receive
think
or
that's
no.
what he was saying? That's what Christ was saying.
Totally.
The Christ consciousness is always there waiting for you to come home to it. It's here. It's not, yes, it's Christ, whatever you believe about literal Christ or metaphorical, whatever people believe. Christ consciousness is real and it lives and gives life and light to everything, right?
It's
So
not
when
scary. We have his light. We don't need to be scared of ourselves. Like, there's
absolutely
nothing dark and scary there. He's like, here's the torch. Let's go find her. Let's help her.
open it up. She's patiently waiting for you to arrive home to understand that the medicine that we've all been looking for, that one relationship, that one perfect thing that's going to love us so much.
Yeah. Or our bodies, like, no, our body here loves us the whole time. You're actually not loving it by thinking it has to be a certain way. Just be you.
So I have a question for you. I have a question. If you were born and I came to you and I said, you have one responsibility in this whole life of yours. You have one responsibility, and that is to take care of one being, one human being. What would you say? You're like, I have one responsibility in this whole life. Here's a human, and that's all you have to do. The whole time you're here is take care of that one human being. How would you show up for that one human being? How would you treat it? Would you dismiss it? You had one responsibility and just one being. Not all your kids, just one being.
Yeah. Of course you would you'd like dedicated to yourself to it. You're like, okay, here we are. Let's fulfill
And at the end, like, how are you taking care of that? How I gave you one responsibility. That's it.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How are you
Yeah.
doing with
Yeah.
that? Yeah, really. It's we laugh. That's the Buddha laugh when you start to realize, holy cow. Oh my gosh, I've been living in this identity that was never true and it was driving my whole life. All my reactions, my responses, my how I ate, how I thought, how I like everything. And I'm free from that now. What does that even mean? Holy cow. It can be that simple because it was just a thought. It doesn't have to be some grand sweeping EMDR months long thing.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of this is understanding it was just a thought and it was a lie. It wasn't even real. It was what you came to believe when you before no the universe wasn't there like, you know what? They're just saying that because they have their own trauma. You don't have to
Yeah.
believe that. Like that's not true. Nobody's doing that. Therefore, it must be part of a greater plan for you to learn how to actually show up. I really do believe that's why we're here. It's to learn. This is it.
Yeah. Well, in the temple, my favorite part of the temple has always been to fulfill the measure of their creation.
Right?
And when you think of it like this, you're like, he just told us that. It is the measure of our creation,
It
not
is.
so and so's
No,
creation,
no,
our own
that,
creation.
thank you for saying that. Thank you.
And I've always loved that. And I loved how they had the eagle flying free. I always felt that was my favorite part of the temple. I was always like, yes.
Hey, is that interesting? I want you to go look up the I've talked about animal medicine and the
Yes.
like eagle. Eagle is
Yeah.
freedom. Eagle is freedom. And it's higher perspective and it's like wisdom. All of the things that you are gaining through understanding who you be,
Mhm.
you're feeling free from that old limitation that was never true about you. Your soul is so much more, honey. Yeah. Welcome
Well,
home,
all of our souls are so much more.
every
It's
one
like
of us.
what the world. I
We're
mean,
all here. We're
yeah,
all here walking each other home is what we're doing if we're doing it right. Right?
that's true.
Yeah.
That is so true. And you're right about what you said. Like when we come home to ourselves, we're allowing other people to come home to themselves.
Right? You're demonstrating it. You're modeling it. And maybe you're not just saying it, it's in your doing. That's what people feel because it's energy. Kids are like little energy sponges. You can say and talk at them all the time, but what are they feeling? What are they watching? What is the energy behind your actions? What is the intention?
I
Right?
know. Well, they see I clean the whole house, but look, my room, my room. No, like I'll be like, I'm gonna get it good for everybody else, and I'll just make my thing bad. It's
Okay.
so sad. Like
Okay. So
I can't do this.
don't judge this. Don't judge
Right.
this, right? You're going to just say, you know what? That's how I used to be. That's okay. Because of course I felt like that. My space isn't so important. All these other spaces are. Give yourself so much grace and
Oh,
see maybe that the needle starts to move there. It's baby steps. It's little giraffe legs. Give yourself permission to tend to yourself in a new way and keep stepping into the freedom of how that feels for you, Debbie.
yes, so nice. Okay,
Yeah.
are we still recording? Hold on, are we
What?
still?
We are, and that's okay because this is beautiful. I do have a hard stop that I need to get going.
Oh,
But
no, I'm sorry. I was just worried. I was just like, I don't want to.
no. But I honor you for showing up here today, sweetie. I thought, is anyone going to show up? And like, it brings tears to my eyes that you did this for you. I have felt you as we've been in touch. I've felt you and just the heaviness of what's moving through your life in these, years. Let's be honest, some years. It's heavy,
Yeah, it is.
but
And
but when you tend to yourself in a new way and you live in a world where things get easier because you choose that they're going to be easier, it's your choice. And the words you speak, as you speak it, so it is. I'm not kidding. What if I could live in a world where things came easy because I believed they could? Who told us that things needed to be heavy and hard? Who said that? Like, really?
It wasn't Jesus.
No, no. That's the thing. Christ always said after he healed someone, thy faith had made thee whole because they believed in him, in the power of him. So when you believe in the power of you and the vibration of the words that you create an emotion and a feeling and a reality about, then how powerful are you? How powerful have you been to create your suffering? You were that powerful.
It's kind of sad to think about, but it's
No,
true.
it's okay. It's okay, honey. We all did it. Every single human did it. You're not alone. This is
Yeah,
collective, honey. Really.
yeah,
It's collective. It's not just you. Don't just
true.
beat you up. This is collective.
True.
Somehow we're raised in a human condition that fear and suffering were the normal. And that's why we're here, is to realize that's exactly why we're here in the human condition, is to overcome fear that we were conditioned to believe. We didn't know another way. What a miraculous gift to finally become aware that, oh my gosh, that's why we're here, is to be free of it and to realize we are the love that we've been looking for. And it's not anything outside of me. I've been looking because I lived in lack and fear, believing that I wasn't enough, but it was always here because I'm not lacking anything because I am love. That's the plot twist of all of existence. You are the thing we are the thing we've been looking for outside of Earth. The thing we've been waiting for our whole life is right here. Here she is. Just wanting to give love to ourselves. And realize.
Babies inherently know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Babies do, you know what I mean? Like, they make sure their needs are taken care of.
Children know, right? We joke and like, oh, this kid's laughing and joking until the world comes crashing down on their shoulders. But
They knew it all along.
What if they knew it all along? But what if they saw modeled by their parents and peers and the people around them modeling that there is another way? That's when things start to change.
Totally.
That's what's happening in our world now. There's a division between people who are choosing fear and people who are choosing love. What are you going to model to the next generations? Wow. Wow.
Well, and that it's never too late. I'm 52. I'm not 102. So I'm better at 52
I
than
love
not.
it. I love that you just said that. Why do we go towards the negative when we're like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I get to show up for myself. You could look at it completely the other way. Oh my gosh, my whole life. Wait, you just woke up. You just became free and you're young. That's like a little baby still. You have the rest of your life to keep coming home to yourself and giving that compassion here. And what gets to grow from there? Everything. It's limitless. It's quantum physics. What are you going to give your attention to? You choose, girl. Where are you going to go? What's the world you want to live in? Decide. Think about it. Feel it. Say it out loud. I'm free. I get to do this and this. This is my world. Okay. Frequency precedes form. Now you're coming into how would I want to live? What is the world I want to live in? You get to choose. Ease. I want my life to be easy. I want my job to come in. I get to work this way and do this. It's the law of attraction. It's manifestation. Call it whatever you want. It's real. It's quantum physics.
Yeah.
And it's spiritual too. Because when you choose to always take the higher perspective and live in the vibration of love, I promise you miracles and magic start happening. Because you will have eyes to see and ears to hear what before you couldn't, because your vessel was clouded with an energy of fear. Now you're clean, you're clear, you're empowered to become anything that you choose. Because now you know the power that you have to create your reality. Now that you're not stuck in a subconscious belief, an identity that never was true. That's the truth. So
That's true. Thank you. I love you so much. Thank you so much. Can I get a recording so I can listen to this like
I will absolutely send you
on
the
loop?
everyone. Everyone will get, I'm going to send this out. So I hope you don't mind if you're okay with that.
It looks so ugly. That's
You
okay.
know what? You are beautiful. Look at you. You're
Gosh, it looks so
radiating.
bad right now.
It's like a whole weight has been lifted. Your eyes are shining.
Thanks. You're sweet.
Yes. Like you're glowing. I
Oh,
love
you're so nice. Thank you. I feel so, but
love you.
I'm trying
Yeah.
not to worry. It's fine. It's fine.
Free. No, you're perfectly perfect as you are.
You're so sweet. I love you so much. Thank you for the gift you've given me and subsequently give my children. And I'm going to keep listening so I can make it a reality.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to send you, I'll send you because I have you on text. I'm going to send you some of these I am statements so you can
Love.
practicing them. Keep it as your mantra. Keep it in the background, especially when you start to wobble and you're like, and you're like, oh, I'm free. I'm this. I live in a world where this. And literally, I want this to sink in. Literally, those words have a vibration that sends out a signal. So you keep repeating them and feel the feeling. It's the emotion, the energy of your emotion, energy in motion, that's going to catalyze that signal and make things come into fruition that match that signal quicker. Now you're manifesting. Now you're a co-creator being.
Yeah.
As you realize the power of your words. So it's not trite to sit there and it's not standing in front of the mirror. I love you. I love you. No, it's like, I am free. Remember the feeling that you felt when you finally had that release, like, oh, I'm free. Keep going back to that over and over. I'm free. I live in a world where I'm free and I treat myself like this.
Yes. And that hopefully then my kids can also do it for themselves because then the
Yeah.
whole family's collective issues,
Right?
they're all lightened
Oh, honey,
because
you're
we're all
healing them.
enlightened.
This right here is starting to heal them. Believe that. Trust that. You're healing them. You're healing your ancestors. You're healing your sisters and your brother. You're healing it all in all directions. Your mom and dad, they're not here, but you're healing them because they exist right now in a different dimension of time.
And they're probably happy that
Oh,
we can
oh,
be healing. Like,
they
you know,
realize, like here, the thing is, okay, I'm just going to say this and then I have to go. But here is a little girl you believed. I'm too much. I'm not safe to be me. And now look at you. You've evolved and you are the link that is healing this family because you never gave up. You didn't give up on you. Here you are, showing up for yourself in this way, and it ripples out across all of now, all of time. You are healing them. Please know this. Your posterity too, honey, goes all directions. It's not just one directional. It's infinite and expansive, this universe. And so are you. Okay?
thank you. Jesus is good. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. Thank
love
you. I love you so much. Appreciate you so much. Thank you. Take care.
You too,
Okay.
sweetie.
Talk
Bye.
to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Mm.